going on there, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the developers at 1047 went ahead and held a Q&A over on Reddit. So we're going to go ahead and dive deep, discuss pretty much all the topics that they threw out there. It's a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to cover it all. I'll leave a link down in the description of this video so you guys can see it with your own eyes. But I'm going to try to touch upon all the most important things that I think, you guys will more than likely want to hear. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, subscribe and hit that bell if you guys want to be notified on all the content that goes live here. We post 2 times a day, 8 a.m. Eastern Time and also 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, we stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I'm going to link that channel down in the description of this video. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, to go ahead and begin, the first comment is by GartCat saying, in relation to your change of direction, are you also looking for feedback from those players that played your game but quit? I'm noticing that, with Splitgate, you guys have been breeding a very tight-knit community, but I also worry that it may turn into an echo chamber. How are you avoiding that? And Ian responded saying, great question, and definitely a tricky thing to navigate. We're looking at a lot of feedback from the past few months and why people quit. We basically read everything on the internet too. Oh man, that's hard too, man, doing that because the internet's a very toxic place. Also, we are working with a third-party group to get players who are not currently playing Splitgate 2 into our next playtests. This will include both players who quit Splitgate 2, as well as players who never tried Splitgate 2, so that we can get opinions from all types of FPS players. I think this is extraordinarily smart because I agree with GartCat here, Splitgate 1, although was, a phenomenal concept, was still extraordinarily niche, you know what I'm saying? And Splitgate 2, it's probably going to go down the same path. But in order to make sure that, they can bring in more players, they should probably prioritize some of the people who quit the game and also casuals who saw it and just, said it wasn't their cup of tea. That's going to be a huge turning point for the overall franchise, and I hope that they can get enough players into the next playtest to get a good overall opinion. Because again, yes, although it's good to have the core Splitgate community's opinion on these things, to make sure Splitgate can thrive and become big and profitable so they can keep Splitgate going on, we have to make sure that everybody is heard at the end of the day. Next up is a question from Karma is the Best saying, what is the plan to bring players back to the game on release? And Sarcastic went ahead and responded saying, the marketing team actually met in person yesterday to dig into this. We're aiming for a more grassroots approach, but the first priority is making sure the game really delivers for the players who wanted to love Splitgate 2, but felt it wasn't quite there yet. And in response to that, it was someone named Mike Southpaw saying, okay, so what is the plan? You have to actually give us an answer. And End of Forever actually responded saying, I think it's safe to say the plan isn't finalized yet. That's why they're meeting to figure out the plan. In response, Mike said, they just said it grassroots. What does that mean to them? And End of Forever said, hopefully it means a community-driven, authentic approach to marketing the game. And that's what I'm assuming too. I think they want to go back to their roots and really make sure that all the marketing revolving around Splitgate 2 is going to be based around the community. And to be honest with you guys, I wouldn't be shocked if they take the approach of, saying they messed up, things, didn't go the way they wanted to, and they really wanted to, change things around and make sure the community gets what they want, so on and so forth. I feel like the marketing the second time around will be good. It won't, help the game pop, but I think it will be able to bring in a lot of the core audience, and then they can slowly start building off of that foundation again. Next up is a question by Ralwus, I believe, and they said ETA on multi-queue. I think that would solve a lot of frustration on the player side. And Ian responded saying, this will be in on day 1 of relaunch. Thank the heavens. I think this would also help a tremendous amount when it comes to the longer queue times. Being able to pick multiple different game modes would allow for, faster matches. So for me personally, this is going to be absolutely huge, and I cannot wait for the relaunch of the game to be able to have this in my hands. Next up is a post by Rod the Programmer, the GOAT, saying, how many times can an employee crash the servers without getting fired? Asking for a friend, and Ian said, at least 4. Make another music video and maybe we'll bump it up to 5. Yes, please. We at least need 1 more music video. Honestly, give us like 5, maybe even 10 more music videos. As many as you could possibly pump out. I think the community will be always happy with that. Next up is by Caps Lock saying, how do you plan on saving your game? And Sarcastic said, we're making a lot of changes to get the game where it needs to be, from gameplay to critical metasystems and progression. The last playtest showed some of that work in progress, like removing factions and opening up loadouts so players can play the way they want. There's more on the way, and you'll see it in upcoming playtests. At the end of the day, the plan is simple. Make the game players actually want to play. Again, I hope this goes well for them because that's the hardest part of this whole deal. Finding out what people actually want to play. They're probably going off of data, but when you go online, you'll see 50 trillion different opinions, and it's like this for every single game. Like Battlefield, for example, some people want open classes, some people want closed classes. Call of Duty, some people want the pick 10 system, some people hate the pick 10 system. All these different games have a very split audience, and a lot of people want different things. So it's hard to, prioritize exact opinions based off what people say online, but hopefully they can find that perfect balance, and with enough play tests, they'll probably be able to do such. Next up is a question from Larson saying, "Hey 1047 team, I've been enjoying your game immensely. I want to ask a couple of things about progression that I feel are missing. Will there be an overall level to grind that will have rewards at certain points? Will it be an endless level or have a cap, maybe a prestige system?" The second question, "Will there be an in-game stat page? I know we'll have tracker GG, but needing to go out of the game to see stats seems silly. Even the announcer says, add another to the wins column, but we don't have one. If so, will there be an option to show off stats?" And the last question, "Speaking of stats, will you entertain the idea of having an option to separate kills and assists, and also see your deaths on the scoreboard during the game? I don't mind if I can only see my own." And Sarcastic went ahead and responded saying, "Hey, thanks for the questions. Josh here. We are overhauling progression for the relaunch, and we are planning on having an overall level you can grind with rewards along the way. We'll have more details as we get closer, so stay tuned. Secondly, we also are planning to have an in-game stats page, so you don't have to tab out to track a GG, though we love them, just to see how you're doing. And lastly, as for the scoreboard, we're not planning on splitting kills and assists during a match, but you'll be able to see that breakdown on the stats page." Honestly, I love all of these answers. I'm very glad there's going to be a progression grind. I think that's huge. I know everybody thinks it's so minimal, but having a level to work for, I think a lot of people really enjoy. And again, when it comes down to the stats page, I get it. Tracker GG is cool and all, but I think we should just simply be able to go through the game, right? We shouldn't have to go through a third-party website to be able to see how we're doing within the current game. I think it's going to be massive that we can actually see our own stats when the game relaunches. Hopefully it comes at relaunch. And then again, for the kills and assists, I gotta be honest with you guys, I don't really think that they should separate that, especially in a game like Splitgate 2 where it's very team-based. I feel like when they do such a thing, people are going to be camping more and not really playing as a team and trying to play for picks, to make their KD a bit better. Whereas now, if you get an assist that counts as a kill, yeah, some people might be annoyed with that, but it encourages newer players to actually push up with your team. Really experienced skill players, they're not going to care. They're going to play the game exactly how it should be played and, play with the squad. But for a new player, they're not. I'm just going to say it now. They're not going to play with their team. They're not going to, do anything for the squad. They're going to do their own thing and try to play for KD. But with the kills and assists working the way they do, it encourages players to actually push up because they know even if they get a couple of shots off on the enemy, they'll still count as a kill for them. So they want to move with their team. They want to go ahead and hop on OBJ with everybody. They want to be near the action. So I can understand where people want it separate, but in a game like Splitgate, I think it honestly fits pretty nicely. Another question here from Flea for Me saying, "Are cosmetics and challenges going to carry over to the relaunch? Or put differently, is there any point in trying to unlock gold/Perilium now? Or will those efforts be reset/undone when the game relaunches?" And Ian responded saying, "Yes, everything will carry over. We won't take anything away. Don't worry." Thank the heavens, because I grinded out all the camos. And if they were to go ahead and remove all the camos away, man, that would be devastating. Next up is a question from Fabulous Attitude saying, "Are you guys planning on coming out with any more weapons once the game is relaunched? I know that there's a good variety now, including power weapons, but I was curious to see if you'll be adding to that." And Ian responded saying, "Yes, we have a few guns, both primary and power, coming to relaunch, and more in the future." And again, I'm super excited and stoked to see what else they have planned in store here when it comes to the weaponry. This is going to be awesome, and I'm glad they're working on primary weapons too and not just power weapons. And if they do decide to remove factions completely when they relaunch, that will allow them to, again, make primaries for everybody, Beforehand, when we had factions, every faction had, a set group of weapons, which means that not every faction will probably get a primary weapon unless they do a little extra work and make a primary for every faction every single time they launch something new. But now, they can, put a lot of effort into one or two weapons, make sure they're very unique, interesting, and launch it, and then everybody across the board can go ahead and mess around with that. So I'm excited to see how they handle this going into launch. Next up is a question by Basehead, saying, "Why was so much attention to detail spared with Splitgate 2's launch? Seems quite a lot of the controversy, BR launch hype, Pricing, no ranked, etc. could have been avoided with a bit more forethought and planning. Do you plan on taking a different approach with the relaunch? And Sarcastic said, we're focusing on what comes next. For us, the key to success is building the game alongside the community. That's a fundamentally different approach than our original launch and historically where we've been the most successful. We also have a lot of data on what players want, and the team is working hard to deliver on that with the relaunch. And in response to this, Mike Southpaw actually said, what do you mean? You weren't listening before and now you are. Please less PR talk and more actual answers, otherwise, what is the point of this? And Sarcastic said, I came on as a design director after launch, so I wasn't part of the original approach. From what I've gathered, the team was previously operating more like a traditional AAA studio, keeping things close to the chest with the goal of big marketing splashes. What I've seen since is a complete shift. Now we're in conversation with the community every day about how to deliver on the feedback and the things players want to see in the game. And honestly, now that Sarcastic has said that, I totally noticed that 110% when it came to the previous marketing and how they're kind of handling the game now. I just hope it's not too late. That's all I can really say. I hope it's not too late. I hope players are still willing to give it a shot because I think, the original marketing kind of put a bad taste in a lot of players' mouths. Some things I disagree with, but I do know that, you can bring it up to a lot of players and they will say it was probably the marketing that really threw them off. So I'm hoping that, when they reapproach this, people will have a bit of an open mind, but there's no guarantees. Only time will really be able to tell on that matter. Next up is a question by Task saying, hello, I have 2 questions I wanted to ask about the game. Has there been any plan or discussion about incorporating cross-progression? For example, PS4 over to PS5, Xbox over to PC, where all achievements, skins, camos, gun unlocks, etc. transfer between copies. Secondly, in the first Splitgate, there were bot lobbies that would be formed eventually if you couldn't get a lobby with players. In Splitgate 2, these bot lobbies return for your first few matches, then you only really encounter bots if a teammate disconnects. I was wondering what was your reasoning behind this decision, and if there has been talks about bringing a bot lobby system like the one in the first game to its sequel. Thank you. And Akuvo actually said, hi, I'm not sure about the specifics of what is allowed to carry over on certain platforms, but we do have cross-progression for at least a lot of the things you mentioned across Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. You should be able to link all your accounts here. And again, like I said, I have a link to the overall thread down in the description of this video. You guys can find all the information there, obviously. And the second point Akuvo said, regarding bots, having bots at the start of games with experienced players was something we saw a lot of negativity around in Splitgate 1, so we wanted to avoid that this time. We haven't had a lot of talks about adding back bots in normal playlists, but having specific casual playlists that allow bots could be an option. What would you like to see? Thanks for the questions. And honestly, for me personally, I don't know about you guys, but of course, go down in the comment section and leave your opinions down below. I think they should just have a specific bot playlist if it really comes down to it, or allow you to just go into customs and add bots there and just keep it as that. When it comes to the public match experience, I gotta be honest, I hate seeing bots. Unless it's like an extraction shooter or a PvE game. I don't really enjoy having bots sprinkled in the overall experience. If I'm playing a PvP game like this, I want to verse real people. I think the best solution, if, of course, the player count is pretty low and you can't find matches quickly, is to do what they did in Splitgate 1, have a little pre-game session where everybody that's in the current game that's waiting for a session to start can be in a private game, and you can just run around, shoot each other, practice portaling, so on and so forth, until the game eventually fills up. But I don't think they should, force bots into the public experience just because it's a little bit of a longer queue time. I think that when, relaunch happens and they add in the multi-queue feature, that should assist with the queue times. Other than that, I think bots should stay in custom matches, but again, leave your opinions down below. And last but not least, I wanted to go ahead and mention this one as well. And of course, there's a lot of other questions and answers that you guys can see for yourselves. But again, I just wanted to go over the most important factors. But this is a question by the Hazardous Monkey saying, what's your favorite aspect of Splitgate 1 that you still want to incorporate in Splitgate 2? And Ian responded saying, EMP grenades. I like the way portal replacing works in Splitgate 2, but I think there is room for a more powerful EMP grenade that temporarily disables portal walls too. Also, some Splitgate 1 maps I do find myself missing. Abyss is one of my favorite maps of any video game ever. And honestly, I would love to see this return. I know they mentioned this before, but I wanted to mention it again. I think it's an awesome concept to, instead of bringing back the EMP grenades to take down portals, bring them back to take down the wall itself, like how the smoke grenade within Splitgate 2 can block off portals, from going behind you. So a lot of people, like, for example, Domination, if they're capturing an objective on B, and it's a portal wall behind them, they put down a smoke grenade, you can't portal next to them, right? Until the smoke grenade goes away. And the EMP grenade can kind of work in a similar fashion. Instead of having a smoke, you EMP grenade the wall behind you, and then people can't portal around you. I think that's a great concept, and I really hope that at some point in time they can reincorporate the EMP grenade, because I think a lot of Splitgate fans will be really happy with this. But overall, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, if you guys want to read the rest of this overall Q&A, the link to the Reddit post is down in the description of this video. But I'm very happy the Splitgate team has been very open with the overall community, talking to us, interacting with us, holding these questionnaires. Of course, there's tons of hate, but they just grind through the hate at such a awesome pace. It's honestly inspiration for me personally. I think any, creator out there who has to deal with a lot of toxicity online, these guys handle it the best way possible. And it's awesome. I can't wait to see how this game, continues to thrive on. And hopefully we can get it back to a spot where a lot of players will want to go ahead and give it another go. And when they do give it another go, hopefully it'll be the game that they were expecting. But, ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. I post here daily at 8 in the morning Eastern Time. We also double upload at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Everything between Splitgate, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Ark Raiders, Gears of War, pretty much anything that sparks my interest, you best believe I'll post it on this channel. And last but not least, if you guys are interested in any of my live streams, I stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I'll link that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all next one. Peace out.